somebody who's written about this for the last 6 years. He saw it happening under Bush. People said, oh, Dr. Corsi, the martial law didn't come. The point is, it's that slow creep, just like the Roman Republic towards absolute tyranny. But now it's not a creep, it's a gallop. And even the Pentagon told Obama, you've got to go to Congress for a new war. Even the Pentagon, that president's never ignored those lawyers. And there's the headline, Emperor Obama to use war powers against the Congress. Yeah, he even threatened over the weekend, 14th Amendment, and said what we used against the South in Reconstruction, when members of the South in Congress wouldn't go for the incredible war reparations on the South, President Ulysses S. Grant just ignored it. So now the president controls the purse strings, the president controls the wars, the kill switch, the governor's councils, all of it. In fact, I want to get Dr. Corsi to talk about that first, because I know he's a political scientist, worked in banking, and he's been worried about this for many years, wrote the late, great USA on the subject. Then we'll get into the big new Obama developments with Dr. Jerome Corsi. But do you concur with my analysis, Ron Paul's, even the portly Nadler, big Democrat, that this is really dangerous, what's happening?
I think it couldn't be more dangerous. This is a power grab at the dictatorship of the presidency, unlike anything that's ever happened in our history. I'm sure you go back to parallels in, the Civil War with Abraham Lincoln suspending, various rights.
Doctor, speak up for me. Start over, Dr. Corsi, and then start over.
I think this is a tremendous power grab, Alex. I think it's one that's unprecedented in American history. And what we should all fear is, like you say, once the power is in the presidency, it's never going to be reversed. It'll be now, George W. Bush had executive orders that extended emergency powers. Now Barack Obama is extending presidential powers that would normally be emergency powers in situations that are not emergencies. But the crisis is going to continue to develop. I mean, we're now on the edge of Europe saying that Greece can actually default on some of its debt. And if Greece starts to default on its debt, the next strategy that's going to be put into place is the United States defaulting on some of our debt. And we're entering into a Great Depression that I think will make the previous Great Depression of the 30s look mild.
And by the way, you predicted this a decade ago in one of your best-selling books. You've written so many on the subject.
America for Sale was really about this whole situation developing, and in fact, saying it was inevitable that the globalists were creating this situation on purpose in order to push us into a one-world government. The solution of all this is going to be to destroy the dollar, like George Soros has wanted to do for decades. It's going to be put the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank in control of the world economic situation. And I continue to say, people got to read America for Sale, because my point there is that this is not a recession or a depression. This is what globalism looks like. The jobs are gone. Structural unemployment in the United States, where cheap labor is exploited, if not in China, then in Indonesia or whatever part of the world it can be found in. That's going to be the future, for the foreseeable future, of the world economy. And the American middle class, in the process, is going to die out, was intended to die out.
Absolutely. The middle class, the historic enemy of oligarchs and crony capitalists. I want to get back into that if we have time, but you join us today because there's been a lot of big developments on the whole hunt for the real birth certificate.
Correct.
They originally, of course, said that a receipt was the original, that no bank vault copy existed. Then magically the new one came out that looked like it had been done by a 3-year-old. Where do we stand now?
Well, the evidence is increasing. In fact, I'm writing a series of stories this week and next week to show that the Obama birth certificate was forged using the Nordyke birth certificate and a couple of others that we now have as templates. I'm going to be able to show the cut and paste job, how the transformation of the information occurred, lifting the information off existing birth certificates, modifying it, cutting and pasting it to put into the Obama birth certificate. And the forgery is now obvious. We've had experts in the Adobe software Mara Zabest has weighed in. She supported Doug Voigt's analysis. He is a typesetter who's owned a scanning company since the 1990s. The document the White House presented was not a scan of an original document, and I still doubt that there is any original birth certificate of this nature in the Hawaii vault. I don't think it exists. I think the PDF electronic file the White House released was the birth certificate. That's the file that was used to create the forgery, and from that file, the copies, the Xerox copies that were handed out at the White House, including the one that supposedly had the seal on it, were printed from that PDF file. They were not Xeroxed or copied or scanned out of an original in the Hawaii vault. I don't think it exists, and if it does, I challenge the Hawaii Department of Health to release the best evidence of the document itself, and submit it to independent forensic examination. That's never going to happen because the document itself doesn't exist.
Dr. Corsi, we haven't talked in about a month. Where is the lawsuit for $285 million against Esquire going? And for those that don't know, recap what Esquire did. Well,
Esquire, once my book was published, Where's the Birth Certificate? Esquire, within the first hours, came on out and they said, in an article that did not identify itself as any kind of a spoof or satire, that Joseph Farah, the publisher at WorldNet Daily, had decided to pull the book because now that the birth certificate had been released, there was no need for the book, and that it was being reduced to pulp, taken off the shelves, and it just wasn't true. The book was not pulled. In fact, it became a New York Times bestseller. It looks like we'll sell. We're headed towards 100,000 copies being sold. The book has sold very strongly since it was in print. And,
but undoubtedly, when they did that and they offered for you to refund the money at retail, that would bankrupt you guys because you sell the book for like $8 to a publisher or to Amazon or to Barnes and Noble. They sell it for $24.95. So they were also putting out a business announcement to basically create the perception that there was a run on the book, a reverse run to dump the book, and undoubtedly this had to have hurt sales.
Well, it did hurt sales, and in fact, I was on many radio interviews where the radio announcers believed that the Esquire was true. The interview started out by saying, what happened, that Joseph Farah pulled your book? I said, no, it didn't happen at all that way. That was completely an Esquire lie. And I think it was what the White House had wanted to happen. This was their plan. I think, quite frankly, Alex, is that they thought that if, in fact, the White House did the stunt of releasing a birth certificate, I'm quite sure my book forced the White House's hand and caused them to release this forgery, the book would be pulled. I think that, and if the book had been published perhaps by a major New York house, maybe the New York House would have pulled the book. They might have been right. Their stunt might have worked at the White House. But WorldNet Daily, we continue to report this story. The birth certificate is an obvious forgery. 100%, I'm 100% certain it's a forgery. And now I'm naming the documents that it was forged from, and we will be now naming the various people involved in the forgery. I'm about to expose the entire network of what's called the OBOTs, these Obama radical supporters who have been plaguing the websites, their own websites and all others, trying to cause disruption, harass anybody as a birther who dares to question Obama.
Yeah, if this wasn't true, they wouldn't have been acting so suspicious for 3 years, and Obama spending $2.2 million to block the release of the long form they said didn't exist.
Precisely, Alex. If this document existed, why wasn't it released 3 years ago? Why didn't the American people see this right away? And the evidence is increasing that Obama was not born in Kenya. I published the Kenyan documents for the Kenyan government, where the Kenyan government told the Bush administration that they believe in Kenya that the Obama birth certificate was criminally removed from the records, criminally destroyed.
And by the way, it shows the Bush administration was so into this that they were quietly looking into it.
Correct.
And you would think that would now be big news, but they used the hoax of announcing that your book had been pulled to just try to close the door on the whole subject and then magically bookend it with the bin Laden popping out of the Cracker Jack box.
It's one of the biggest cover-ups in American history.
It is. Stay there. Let's talk more about it on the other side with Dr. Jerome Corsi. We'll also talk about Donald Trump. This is a short segment, a little bit more time coming up with Dr. Corsi. Dr. Corsi, you dropped bombshells on me during the break. I said, man, they were really scared of this, that, he pulled that stunt right as your book came out. And I said, do you see the whole bin Laden thing as an opportune way to smokescreen as well? And you concurred that these were October surprises that they were saving for the election but had to pull now. Break it down, Dr. Corsi.
Well, I think the Obama administration had planned that the birth certificate issue would surface just before the election in November 2012, and they'd spring on the public with no time to analyze it, the forgery that had already been done and was being held for the right time. And also, the second October surprise I think we forced the Obama administration to use was to kill Osama-bin-Laden. I think they had trapped him and hunted Osama-bin-Laden down. They could have killed him any day they wanted. But instead of having these two big news stories just before the November 2012 election as October surprises to propel Obama into office, my book, Where's the Birth Certificate, being published was so threatening to the White House that they had to use early these two prepared October surprises. We forced their hand. And I've been told that directly by inside information that leads directly back into the White House.
Dr. Corsi, I know you have a lot of sources inside government and the military. I know you've worked for the federal government in counterterrorism. Let's just say you've got an intelligence-type background. What is the word? Because obviously, they lied about bin Laden fighting back. They supposedly threw him in the ocean. They had DNA released before anybody could release it. They admit they faked the White House Situation Room photo. That was admitted 3 days later. That was totally fake. The whole thing was a lie. What is the information you have? The information I have is that bin Laden died of kidney failure a long, long time ago.
Well, again, it's going to be very hard to prove any of these things. I've been focusing 100% on the birth certificate, and I can tell you the birth certificate is a forgery. It's a fraud that was made up, and I can tell you exactly when it was done. It was done right after Governor Abercrombie could find nothing.
Yeah, he was in the newspaper saying I couldn't find anything.
Right. And when that word came out, and then just before February 24th, I got called by my sources in Hawaii. One of the moles that we've had within the Hawaii Department of Health went in and looked at the logbook, and suddenly the Obama fake birth certificate had been inserted into the logbook. So it's a fake document. It was created as a fake document. The whole thing is a manipulation. It's a big, big lie. The Hawaii Department of Health is still issuing long-form birth certificates to people who want to pay for them. This whole idea that it was a special permission and the Obama lawyers had to go out to Hawaii and get special dispensation to pick up the birth, that's all nonsense. Within 3 weeks before the Obama birth certificate was released, I've got copies in my files of long-form birth certificates that were sent by the Hawaii Department of Health to people who paid $10 fees to get them. The whole thing is a lie. And I'm confident now that my book, that Where's the Birth Certificate, is so threatening to the Obama administration. The information in it about the Obama lies, about his past and who he is. There's an undocumented president. And the lies continue. I've proven that the Obama mother and father did not live together as man and wife. Now we got this immigration file coming out, and it's clear that the immigration department where Obama was born doubted the mother and father were married or...
Absolutely, and the Kenyan government's on record saying somebody stole the records of Obama and Kenya. Stay there. A few more key questions. Donald Trump coming up.